Chapter 21. The Pattern. The silence in the medical bay had a new quality. It wasn't the stunned quiet of grief, nor the hollow stillness of the broken. This was a focused silence, a waiting silence. Jax lay on the central cot, restraints securing his wrists and ankles, a precaution Anya had insisted on. His eyes were open, staring at the low, orange ceiling. They didn't track movement. They didn't blink. His breathing was slow, perfectly regular, like a machine set to an efficient idle. The initial panic, the violation, was gone. What remained was placidity. But it wasn't Evander's peaceful emptiness, nor the serene harmony of the gray-eyed crew. When Rook leaned close, his perception brushing against the young man's mind, he didn't find silence. He found a pattern, a cold, intricate, recursive, geometric thought, looping on itself. It was analyzing. It was calculating. It was curious. "He hasn't spoken since you brought him in," Anya whispered, her face drawn with a new kind of fear. "Vitals are textbook normal. EEG is strange, not the flat line of coma, not normal waking activity. It's this." She pointed to a secondary screen showing Jax's brainwave patterns. They formed a near-perfect, repeating fractal, a snowflake of electrical activity that never varied. "It's the sphere's scan," Rook said, his voice low. "It didn't just read him, it left something behind. A subroutine, a question, running on a loop in his mind." Vance stood at the foot of the cot, her arms crossed as if against a chill. "A question about what?" "About us. About why we're still noisy." Rook looked at Jax's blank face. "It's using him as a sensor. A live feed." Karr had entered quietly. He didn't look at Jax with horror, but with a terrible, calculating interest. "So the entity, the cosmic process, it's not just out there, it's in here." He tapped his own temple. "And it's infectious. It's not a disease," Anya protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "It subverts neural function to serve its own analytic purposes," Karr stated flatly. "That meets any functional definition of a pathogen, and if it can spread from person to person." "It can't," Rook said, though he wasn't sure. The sphere had to make physical contact with his neural interface. It used the suit's emergency MedLink port. "Which every suit has," Hayes said grimly from the doorway. "And we have limited suits. We share them. Cross-contamination is possible if the residue persists in the port." A new, more intimate terror seeped into the room. The enemy wasn't just the void or the crushing truth of their solitude. It was a thought that could hitch a ride on their tools, their lifelines to the outside. A pattern that could rewrite a mind into a passive observer, a living data point for a cosmic audience. "We quarantine," Vance said, the command automatic. "The suit Jax wore is sealed in the airlock. Decontamination protocols. No one uses it until we understand what we're dealing with. All EVA is suspended until further notice." "That will kill the salvage operations," Karr said. "We'll starve faster. Or we'll die cleaner," she shot back. "We're not risking this pattern spreading through the entire population. One mind turned into an antenna for that thing is a catastrophe. A dozen would be the end." Rook couldn't tear his eyes from Jax. The fractal pattern on the screen was hypnotic. It was so clean, so efficient. It was the opposite of the messy, chaotic, grieving noise that filled the rest of the outpost. A part of him, the part scarred by the silent spring, felt a perverse attraction to it. The end of pain. The end of difficult choices. To become a pure, observed fact. He shook his head, dispelling the thought. That was the pattern talking, trying to optimize him too. Yet over the next 2 days, the medical bay became a prison and a laboratory. Jax remained unchanged. He would eat if fed, drink if water was placed to his lips. He excreted waste on a predictable schedule. He was a perfect, self-sustaining biological machine running a single, elegant program. Then, the first change occurred. Leah, in her corner, began to hum. Not her old, unsettling tune, but a single, pure, unwavering note. It was the same frequency as the hum Rook had felt from the sphere. Anya rushed to her side, but Leah was unresponsive, her eyes fixed on Jax across the room. The two of them, the broken and the patterned, seemed connected by that silent, resonant tone. It's not physical contact, Rook realized, watching them. It's resonance. The pattern in Jax is broadcasting, and Leah, her mind is already stripped bare, tuned to trauma. She's receiving it. Can it spread like that? Vance asked, her voice tight. Through the air? Through thought? Through perception, Rook murmured. If you're sensitive enough, and the signal is strong enough. They isolated Leah, moving her to a makeshift screened-off area. But the damage, if it was damage, was done. The single note continued, a haunting background hum in the medical bay. The effect on the rest of the outpost was insidious. News of the quiet sickness spread, mutating with each telling. Some saw it as a divine punishment for their hubris, others as the final, inevitable victory of the silence they had escaped. Productivity in the workshops plummeted. People moved through the corridors in wary silence, eyeing each other suspiciously. The shared grief that had begun to unite them was now poisoned by a new fear, that your neighbor, your friend, could become a silent conduit for the void. Karr's influence grew. His earlier talk of hard logic now seemed prescient, not cruel. He didn't advocate for a lottery anymore. He advocated for a cordon. We have 2 confirmed cases and a plausible vector, he argued in a tense, closed-door meeting with Vance, Hayes, and Rook. We must treat this as the highest-level biocontainment breach. The medical bay becomes a permanent isolation ward. No one in, no one out. We supply them through a sterile pass-through. We monitor for any further spread through remote sensors. You're talking about sentencing Jax and Leah to death, Vance said, her face pale. I'm talking about preserving the 98% of us who are still us. Karr's calm was fraying into a sharp, desperate intensity. Commander, this isn't about morality anymore. This is about epidemiology. That thing out there in the rock, it found a way in. It's using our own neural architecture as a culture medium. We either contain the infection or we all become data points for God. He's right about the risk, Hayes said reluctantly, not meeting Vance's eyes. We don't know how it spreads. If it can jump via resonance to someone as vulnerable as Leah, who's next? Someone exhausted? Someone grieving too deeply? It could spread through our weakest points until we're all humming that damn note. Vance looked to Rook. You're the expert on impossible things. What do we do? All eyes turned to him. The rememberer, the bridge. He felt the weight of it, heavier than the crypt, heavier than the truth of Earth's death. He looked at the floor, at the scuffs on the deck plating, the mundane reality of their struggle. He thought of the sphere's cold curiosity. Define this function. He understood now. The cosmic process didn't want to kill them. It wanted to understand why they hadn't died. Their pain, their grief, their love, their stubborn noise. It was an anomaly in its perfect, simplifying universe. Jax was an experiment. Leah was a secondary observation. And if they responded with fear, with quarantine, with a brutal logic of sacrifice, they would be giving it the wrong answer. They would be showing it that under pressure, they too simplified. They chose the tribe over the individual, safety over compassion. They would become a predictable pattern. We don't quarantine them, Rook said, the words coming slowly as he worked out the logic. We embrace them. Karr stared at him as if he'd sprouted a second head. Have you lost your mind? Embrace a cosmic infection? It's not an infection. It's an inquiry. It's asking, what are you? Rook stood up, the idea solidifying. If we lock them away, treat them as contaminated, we answer, we are things that fear difference. We are things that sacrifice the few. That's a simple, logical answer. That's data it can process. What's the alternative? Vance asked, her gaze intense. We answer with complexity, Rook said, a flicker of the old, tactical fire in his gut. We show it something illogical. We care for Jax. We try to reach Leah. We bring them into the center of the community, not its outskirts. We acknowledge the pattern in them, but we respond with noise it can't compute, with irrational care, with music that isn't a single note, but a symphony of grief and hope. We have to confuse it, Alara. Not with one memory, like I did. With a whole civilization's worth of contradictory, messy, beautiful noise. The room was silent. The plan was insane. It was the opposite of every survival instinct. "It could kill us all," Hayes said quietly. "It could save us all," Rook countered. "Or it could do nothing. But I know what the other path leads to. It leads to us becoming jailers, then executioners, and finally, just another quiet, efficient pattern in the dark. We'll have harmonized ourselves." Karr stood up, his chair scraping loudly. "This is insanity. You're asking us to risk our children's lives on a philosophical argument with a rock." "No," Rook said, meeting his furious gaze. "I'm asking us to be the argument, the whole, loud, messy, painful argument. That's what we have left, Karr. That's our only weapon." Vance studied Rook's face for a long, excruciating moment. She saw the man who had walked out of Silent Spring, who had faced down the core, who carried the end of the world in his head. She saw no certainty, only a desperate, stubborn faith in the very noise that had defined and damned their species. "Hayes," she said, her voice firm, "prepare the main common area. Move Jax and Leah there. Set up their cots in the open. Anya will continue to treat them as patients. Everyone sees them. Everyone understands they are part of us, not apart from us." "Commander," Karr began. "That's an order, Soren." Vance cut him off, her tone leaving no room. "We will not simplify ourselves. Not for the void, not for fear, not even for survival. If this is our last stand, we will make it a noisy one." She turned to Rook. "You have your stage, remember? Now let's see if the universe appreciates the show." The decision sent shockwaves through the outpost. The fear was palpable, a metallic taste in the recycled air. But so was a strange, defiant energy. People who had been moving like ghosts now moved with purpose, albeit a terrified one. They cleared space. They hung makeshift curtains for a semblance of privacy around the two cots. Anya and her assistant set up a medical station nearby. Jax and Leah were moved, Jax placid and pattern-bound, Leah humming her single, pure note. They became the centerpiece of their fragile society, and Rook sat between them, the bridge, the translator. He closed his eyes, placed a hand on each of their arms, and did the most illogical thing he could think of. He began to tell them a story, not a memory of Earth, a story from the book, Whitman's Song of Myself. He recited the lines he remembered, the ones about containing multitudes, about being untranslatable, about the barbaric yop. He poured into the recitation not just the words, but the feeling they gave him, the bewildering, exhilarating chaos of being alive. He poured it through his scar, through his perception, into the cold, geometric pattern of Jax's mind and the thin, resonant frequency of Leah's hum. He offered them noise, glorious, inefficient, beautiful noise. And in the depths of Jax's fractal thoughts, the perfect pattern stuttered. For a single, fleeting second, the snowflake on the EEG screen broke its symmetry. A jagged, chaotic spike. A piece of noise in the machine. In her cot, Leah's single, unwavering note fractured. Just for a moment. It wavered, acquired a second, dissonant harmonic, then collapsed back into the pure tone. It was barely anything. A hiccup in the silence. But it was a start. Across the outpost, people felt it. Not a sound, but a shift in the emotional weather. A crack in the dread. They didn't understand it, but they turned from their tasks, looking toward the common area where the Rememberer sat between the silent ones, whispering poetry into the dark. They didn't know what he was doing, but they felt, for the first time since the truth had crashed down upon them, that they were not just waiting to die. They were making a statement. And somewhere, in the cold rock beneath them, in the hidden sphere, a vast and mindless process registered the new data stream. Contradictory, recursive, emotionally charged noise, amplifying around the initial anomaly.
Error parameter will exhibits social amplification, contagious illogic, threat to simplification, protocol, reassessing.
The universe was listening, and for the first time, it seemed confused.